Hello and welcome to another episode of Guess That Record. I am your host, Jackson Reed. This is the show where we talk about music and try to figure out which album I pulled from my collection. Thanks again to all our listeners. We always appreciate the support. We have a super cool guest today. He is best known for being a founding member of Huey Lewis and the News. As the band's drummer, he was behind the kit for all their biggest songs like Power of Love, Heart and Soul, and Jacob's Ladder. I'm so happy to welcome Bill Gibson to Guess That Record. How are you doing, Bill?
I'm well, Jackson. Thank you very much for having me on.
For sure. Yeah. So where are we talking to you from today?
I'm in California, Northern California. I live north of San Francisco, and I'm in my studio and just got done practicing.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to California a bunch, but like just Southern California, like LA, San Diego. I think probably the most north place I've been to in the state would be the San Fernando Valley. So I would like to go to San Francisco one day. It's on my list for sure.
It's beautiful up here.
Yeah. Now it's really great to have you on the show. I'm a Huey Lewis fan. And, I really think you guys are one of the quintessential 80s bands. It's just such an impressive catalog of songs that you guys put out there. So I'm really excited to be speaking with someone who was a part of it all.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, for anyone who listens to this show regularly, I always start off by asking, what was the first song or the first album you remember hearing that made you take music seriously? And I'm curious to hear your answer because from what I understand, your dad had a pretty big impact on getting you into music. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, he was an architect by trade, but he was a frustrated jazz drummer. So he gave me a pair of sticks when I think I was like 7 or 8, maybe, and he said, "Here's how you swing." He taught me how to swing, play a jazz swing beat, and I just took off from there. I fell in love with it. I wanted to be a saxophone player originally. I saw, on TV when I was a kid, Lawrence Welk was a big show on the afternoon, on Sunday afternoons. And I saw the horn section and I thought that is smooth. I'd love to do that. So I actually started playing clarinet, which has the same mouthpiece in my elementary school band, that I played that for 3 years. But it just turned out my dad started taking me to see guys like Buddy Rich and the Count Basie Orchestra and Duke Ellington, and he'd take me to all these jazz festivals and stuff, and he really kind of got me to fall in love with the drums.
Mm-hmm. And when did rock and roll come in for you?
Probably when in the late 50s, when I was 7, 8, stuff like Barry Mann, who was wrote a song called "Who Put the Bomb," which was kind of an early rock tune. Chuck Berry, of course. I wasn't that big into Elvis, but I liked not a lot of it, but some of the things he did. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really consider that rock and roll. I don't know why, but Chuck Berry certainly. Yeah, and then I really, really, really got into it when the Beach Boys hit in like 61, 62.
Yeah, of course. And now one of the things that I think makes you stand out a bit more, besides being a great drummer, is the fact that you can also sing as well, which definitely came in handy with Huey, where there was a lot of complex backing vocals. So how did you start singing?
My mom was the director of the church choir, and I was in the junior choir. And we just sang. Music was in my house constantly. My mom loved Broadway shows. She had all the records, Oklahoma, King and I, South Pacific. So we'd listen to all that stuff in the daytime when my dad was at work. And when my dad come home, he'd put on the jazz, the big band jazz, So but my mom sang constantly. So I always just I thought everybody could sing. So that's what my daughter says that as well. She's a singer, and she says I always thought everybody could sing. I didn't realize that some people can't.
Yeah, no, that is a good point for sure. And so from what I've read, you started playing in bands in high school. And is it true that you went to the same school as Huey?
Yeah, Huey and I were in the same junior high school together.
Yeah, kind of
And
crazy to think that
yeah,
sort of knew each other before then.
well, I didn't know him then. He was a year ahead of me. My sister actually knew him. My sister was a year ahead of me, and she was in the same grade as Huey. So they knew of each other. They didn't really weren't close friends or anything like that. But and I knew of him. But then he took off and went to Lawrenceville Academy in New Jersey for high school, and I went to the local high school in Mill Valley, Tam High, and everybody. I mean, at that point, everybody knew everybody. So you know,
Mm-hmm.
I got to know all of Huey's friends. Then he came back, and then we got to know each other when our band started doing gigs together.
Yeah. And the formation of the News is kind of interesting because from what I've gathered, it was sort of like two competing bands coming together to form a new one. So how did you guys all decide to get together and start your own thing?
Huey and Sean, our keyboard player, were in a band called Clover.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny and Mario Cipollina, our original bass player, were in a band called Soundhole, and we played all the same clubs in the county here and around the Bay Area. And we were friends before. I mean, we were all friends before we were, you know, contemporary competing groups. You know, so Clover went off to England in 1977, and the year before that, Soundhole had broken up. I was playing with bassist Jack Cassidy, who was with the Jefferson Airplane and Hot
Mm-hmm.
Tuna. I was playing with him in a punk band with Brian Marnell, our guitar player, and that was 77. Clover went to England, recorded a couple of albums over there, came back after 2 years and disbanded immediately. And we'd been talking about doing like a variety show, put together a band to do a variety show at our local club. And that was the Monday Night Live band. That project was Johnny and Huey and myself and Sean. We had another Kevin Wells, Clover's drummer, was the second drummer. And so we just did a variety show, which developed into us writing music together, which developed into us forming the News.
Right. Yeah. And you guys got a record deal pretty fast after that. Is that right?
I don't know if it was fast. It seemed like a million years, but Monday Night Live band started in 77, I believe, or 78, right around in there. And we didn't get our record deal till 80.
Hmm.
So, or 19, maybe late 79, we did a showcase. And every major label in the United States passed on us. But this little company, Chrysalis Records, an English company based in London, Chris Ellis and Terry Wright, they took a liking to us and signed us to the deal. And thank God they did.
Yeah. I am, because I'm a musician myself, and we're in the process of trying to get signed. And so I always, it does sort of seem interesting to learn about how other artists get signed, and especially back then where it was just sort of more like pass the tapes around, and if someone likes it, then you got a deal.
Yeah, you have to remember it was a completely different world back then. No internet, no cell phones, none of that stuff, and it was all about AM radio. And so that's just not the way it is nowadays. It's completely different. So I wish you luck in getting a deal. I mean, it's hard to do.
For sure. Yeah, it's taken us a while, but we're working away at it.
Good deal.
And so then, yeah, you guys went on to make your first album, which didn't have a huge commercial impact. And it is an interesting album because it just feels so different compared to what would follow. But I'll pull it up here. The record that kind of got you guys going was Picture This. And I feel like this is the one where the kind of like trademark Huey Lewis and the News sound came in. The production is sleek, and most importantly, those extremely tight backing vocals began to appear. So how did you guys go about recording the vocals in those days?
Well, it depends on the tune, of course, but it was usually a three-part vocal with myself, Chris, and Johnny were the three parts. Johnny did well. What got our foot in the door was "Do You Believe in Love," the song that Mutt Lange wrote for us. And on that song, Johnny did all the vocals. He did the three-part and double tracked it, so it sounded massive. It was 6 tracks of Johnny, and it was beautiful, and that really, I think, put that song over the top. Was his BVs.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was all Johnny. Then we just went into doing stuff. Chris, Johnny, and myself. It was sometimes combination. Sometimes it was Sean, Chris, and Johnny. Sometimes it was, it was just different combinations of three parts generally.
Yeah. Do you have? Are you like the high parts, the low parts? Where do you?
I'm the low part in all of that stuff. Yeah. Johnny's the high part, Chris is the middle part, and I'm the low part.
That's where I would be too. Yeah. But with Picture This, before I get too ahead of myself, that was the first album where you guys produced it. Do you think that producing the records yourself kind of gave you guys a more distinct sound?
Yes, absolutely. It was what we wanted it to sound like. So that really brought out our character, as far as the productions were concerned. We had full control over what we sounded like, and so that was key, I think.
And it goes to show, the trust that Chrysalis Records had in you guys, because of course the first album didn't do so well, and I feel like, kind of going back to comparing the old days to today, I don't know if an artist going into their second record after the first one wasn't a hit, I don't know if they'd be able to go to the label and say, we want to produce it. So they had trust in you.
Oh yeah. They definitely trusted us.
Yeah. So now I can pull it up. The next record that came out was, of course, this one, Sports. And of course, there's you right there. And I found this great write-up to share with you about Sports. So the period of 1983 to 1984 was a banner period for rock blockbusters, with albums from ZZ Top, Def Leppard, The Police, Van Halen, and Bruce Springsteen, amongst others. But Huey Lewis and the News outsold all of them with Sports in 1983, except for Michael Jackson's Thriller. And Sports was still selling 16 months after release, making it the number 14 seller the following year in 1984. Now, it's pretty crazy because Sports is estimated to have sold about 10 million copies worldwide. And it makes sense to have done that well, considering how it's just hit after hit after hit on that record. So how does it feel to have been a part of, such a defining album like that?
We had a lot of blind faith as musicians growing up, and we always felt that we would be successful, and so that's why there was no quit in us. We just wouldn't quit. And so obviously amazing, what an incredible career we've had, and that album certainly put us over the top, but yeah, amazing. I mean, it's about the only word I can use to describe it.
Yeah, of course.
We had no idea it was going to do that.
Yeah. And so the album starts off with The Heart of Rock and Roll. And I was wondering, were you guys inspired by Pink Floyd to start that track with a heartbeat?
No.
Because it's kind of like the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon also starts with a heartbeat.
Okay. No.
Which is what reminded me of that. But yeah.
We never thought of it.
Okay.
We just thought, hey, it's the heart of rock and roll, and let's use a heartbeat.
Yeah. And was that with a bass drum that you did that sound?
No, that was with a Lindrum.
Mm,
I We had just gotten a hold of the new Lindrum at the time, and I remember sitting there in the studio and boom, 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 boom on one of the little pads,
right.
boom, boom. And we
Cool.
mixed it in with something else. We mixed another sound in with it, I think. Can't remember what it was, but no, that's just me playing a drum machine.
Nice. And another song from the album that I really wanted to bring up was Heart and Soul, which is my favorite. And I would say it's my favorite song from you guys. Like, especially because I'm a guitar player, and the tone on Heart and Soul is just like, it sounds great. But what do you remember about putting that song together?
That's a Mike Chapman, Nicky Chin song, um, who they had released it as in their band Exile, and then the Bus Boys had a version of it that was actually on the radio. And I can't remember who pitched it to it. Mike Chapman, I think, pitched it to Huey or our manager Bob, and said, "You guys, this is great. You guys would be perfect for this song." So we worked it up, and it just worked out great. And the recording went down smooth as silk. We kind of pinched some of Exile's production ideas, like the percussion and stuff. That was all on Exile stuff, and it was like a hybrid between theirs and our version, I think. So yeah, it went down real easy. Bob Clearmountain mixed that song, and he got those guitars. When we sent it to him, the guitars did not sound like that, I guarantee
Mm.
it. And he did something to it, and wow, when it came back, I just said, "Oh my God, that's fantastic." So
Cool. Yeah. Um, and then the track that I would consider to be like the vocal standout on Sports is If This Is It, with all those soaring backing vocals, of course. And the song, I think, has kind of like a Beach Boys feel to it. Is that what you guys were going for with that song?
yeah, Johnny wrote that song with he wanted to be a summertime feel. He wanted to be like the beat's very similar to Sly Stone's Hot Fun in the Summertime,
Mm.
right? It's a 12/8 shuffle, and so he wanted it to sound summerish, which it does with that beat. And yeah, we pulled it off. He originally wrote it as it was called "Who Rocked, Who Rolled," and that the lyric wasn't going to fly. So Huey rewrote the lyrics, and we changed the background to the background used to go "Who rock, who rolled," right? But it's now "Ooh up, ooh oh."
Yeah.
So we just changed the backgrounds.
And I think the music video also definitely helps with that kind of beachy feel
Oh
that the
yeah,
song has. How tough was it to film that shot of you guys buried in the sand?
very tough. It was about 90 degrees on the Santa Cruz beach that day, and we were sweating our brains out. And the staff had the crew, the filming crew, had to keep coming over and wiping the sweat off of us. Remember, that was difficult. We were roasting.
Yeah, I bet that. But it was a cool shot, so it was all worth it
Yeah,
in the end.
that's right.
And now talking about sports as a whole, and I think this is a great question for you. I love the drum sound on Sports, like especially from the snare. Like it's just really pleasing to the ear, in my opinion. How did you get the drum sound on that album?
Bob Clearmountain.
Yep.
At the time, I believe I was using a Tama snare drum. Might have been it was some like a Coca-Cola wood snare or something like that. But it was a real thick shell, and we had it tuned down a little bit so it was really full and snary. But Bob is responsible for the tone.
No.
His
Yeah.
mix was just stellar.
Hmm. And then after Sports, the next thing the band did, which was probably the biggest thing you guys were a part of, was of course the Back to the Future soundtrack, which produced Power of Love and Back in Time. Now, Back to the Future is just such a big movie, and to this day, I think it's still quite prominent in pop culture. And the song on its own, away from the movie, was a huge hit. It was the first song for you guys to hit #1 on the charts. With all that in mind, would you say it's the band's defining song?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was certainly the biggest one worldwide, and obviously a huge moment in time for us. We were nominated for an Academy Award. Should have won it. Should have won the Song of the Year at the Grammys that year too, but it was the powers that be decided that Lionel Richie was his year, and but yeah, that was pretty much. I think it's fair to say that was our defining song.
Yeah, definitely. Now, around that same time, actually, another really cool thing that you guys got to be a part of was We Are the World. And a couple episodes back, I got to interview David Paich from Toto, and he played some keyboard parts on this song, but like as they were putting the finishing touches on it. So you're the first person that I've had the chance to speak with who was like actually at the main recording. Of course, you can see you in the picture right there. Just an insane thing to be able to say that you were there for, because you look around in that room and there's Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel and Michael Jackson and so on and so on. Was it intimidating to be in that room with all those big names?
A little bit, but once the evening progressed, it was like, we're just all peers, we're all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, but that said, yeah, you look over here and there's Ray Charles, standing there, and you look over there and there's Stevie Wonder, and then there's like say there's Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, there's Diana Ross. Yeah, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah.
For Marin County kids like us.
Yeah. Of all the people you met that night, who was like the coolest interaction you had with, you'd say?
Probably the Jacksons. They were right in front of us, the Jacksons, and the Pointer Sisters were close by too. And I'd met Dan Aykroyd before. I knew Dan from the 70s from New York. I'd been to his bar, and so we spoke a little bit. And but the Jacksons and the Pointers and Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard was another one. He was great. He was there briefly while we were singing the harmonies, the choir part, and he was looking uncomfortable, and he leans over to Sean or Johnny or somebody. He says, "Is anybody know where I can get a beer here?" And so there was no alcohol in the studio room, right? So he did a couple of takes of the stuff, and then we noticed, hey, Merle's gone. Merle just bailed.
Wow. And I understand the reason that you all got to be there, and like not just Huey, was because Quincy Jones liked the fact you all could sing, which is a heck of an endorsement.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only full band at that thing. The E Street band wasn't there. Prince's band wasn't there. Prince bailed on the night.
Yeah.
He actually gave us our award at the American. That night started with the American Music Awards, and we won a few. And Prince gave us our award for something or other, and he did not show up. He was supposed to show up. Huey actually took Prince's line in the one when they went one at a time.
Yeah, I read a story that because Prince was supposed to be Huey's part, and but Lionel Richie was telling Prince on the phone. Yeah, he was like, "We'll put you next to Michael Jackson," and that was sort of, he was like, "No, you're not," or whatever. Yeah. But anyways, for you guys, you continued the upward momentum with 4. And it featured 2 #1 hits, which both lead off the album, Jacob's Ladder and Stuck With You. And I think with a song like Stuck With You, it really highlights how 4 was a very strong vocal album for the group, as many of the songs have, the very rich, big backing vocals. Was that kind of the goal with a lot of these songs?
At that point, Johnny was really coming into his own as an arranger, as a vocal arranger, and that it was just a natural progression for us. I think,
Hmm.
I just think it was very, very natural.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up the song Doing It All for My Baby. And the reason I wanted to bring it up was because it's got a very complex music video that pays homage to sort of like horror movies and Scooby-Doo. But was that the biggest video you guys made from a production standpoint?
Probably, yeah, yeah. That was done on a soundstage in Hollywood, and yeah, I'd say so.
Hmm.
As was, because everybody was in prosthetics and makeup and all this outrageous makeup. So yeah, I'd say that was the most ambitious one.
And I also wanted to bring this up from that video because there's kind of a callback to the "If This Is It" video. There's a shot where it's just you guys, it's just your heads singing, but your heads are in jars. How did you guys pull off that shot?
That was by design.
Hmm.
He wanted to do something that was a callback to "If This Is It." And I think there's another video we did the same thing in another video too. Well, that's just we just got up underneath the table and they put glass things over our heads. And
Right. The movie magic, as they would say.
yeah, yeah.
um, and then the next album you guys did was Small World, which was a bit of a stylistic change for the band compared to the previous albums. But from a drumming perspective, it has a lot of complex rhythms. So did that make it a fun album for you to record?
Really fun. Now that was one of my favorite records, yeah, to record for sure.
Hmm.
Lots of
Yeah.
drums.
Yeah, definitely. And the big hit from the album was Perfect World, which is one of those songs that did very well on the charts, but somehow I feel it isn't as remembered as some of the other hits from previous albums, which is too bad because I think it's a great song. How was that track put together?
Our pal Alex Call wrote that song. Alex was the singer guitar player in Clover,
Mhm.
Huey's band, and he was playing it. He had his own band at playing clubs around Marin, and he was playing that, and we really liked it. And I think he said, "You guys should do it," and so we did. And it was different for us, and we liked it because it was different.
Mhm. Yeah.
We made it our own, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. It does yeah, especially I think with going back to the complex rhythms, that's probably where it's different, but at the same time I feel like once you get to the chorus then it's like, this is Huey Lewis, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um and talking about how Small World was a stylistic change, the next album you guys made was Hard at Play, which was sort of a return to the usual stuff for you guys. And I wanted to ask you about the song Hit Me Like a Hammer, which I had only heard for the first time recently. And I was surprised how I missed it because I think it's a great song. And it was co-written by Mutt Lange, who, of course, he wrote Do You Believe in Love? But I think with Hit Me Like a Hammer, it has a much more sort of stereotypical Mutt Lange sound to it. Like I could totally picture Bryan Adams doing that song. Was it noticeable when recording that track to like, did you think like, yeah, this really feels like a Mutt song?
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, that song, unfortunately, it never gained much traction within the group as far as playing it live. I don't think we might have played it live two or three times in our career.
Wow.
And, it was just not a song that it just laid there, live. It was not a good live song. Maybe a good studio song, but it was never going to work live. So that we never played it.
That's interesting. Yeah. But now that I think about it, I can sort of see what you're saying because it is maybe a bit of a slower sort of
Yeah,
groove to it. So yeah, maybe not as good in the live setting, but
yeah.
yeah.
We used to call it a locks. It was a locks,
Right.
a locks
Uh,
on stage.
um, now, I'd like to fast forward to the present day because I wanted to mention that I have actually seen you perform before. I saw you on the last tour that you did with Huey in 2017. at the Grey Eagle Casino here in my hometown of Calgary, which was a great show. And
Oh, wow. That one way out in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. Um, but it's crazy for me to look back on it because that would have been one of the last shows you guys played, as a couple of months later Huey went public with his hearing problems.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it when I found out about that news, because at the show I went to, you would have no idea that Huey was dealing with that, because he was singing in key and there was nothing to suggest he wasn't 100%. But did you guys know, like guys in the band know about those issues he was having on that last tour?
Well, Huey had lost his hearing in one ear 25 years previous.
Mm.
That we knew about that, and we knew about the vertigo. His full hearing loss when his other ear went, that happened literally overnight.
Mm.
And we had he had no idea it was coming. We had no idea it was coming. That was a shock. So when we went to that one gig, and we had a corporate show in Dallas, and when he started singing, he was looking around with a very odd look on his face, and he was not close to the key that the song was in. And I was looking at our bass player going, uh-oh, what's going on? He can't hear himself, and so that's what was happening. His other ear had gone literally overnight.
Mm.
So that was a very rough gig. The next week we had another corporate show in New Orleans. So we flew to New Orleans, and we're at sound check for that show. And he came to the sound check and he said, and we started playing, and he says, I can't hear a thing. It just sounds like a jet engine to me. I can't hear pitch. I can't hear anything. I can't do the, so we had to cancel that show right there.
Mm.
Back to the hotel, packing up and going back to the airport and flying home. And that was the end.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's it's really too bad how that all happened. But
Yeah.
right before things had to be put on hold, you guys were in the studio making a new album, which was finally released in 2020 as Weather. And it was the first record that you guys made with new material in nearly 20 years. So how fun was it to be working on new songs again?
It was fun. Later in our career, we weren't as prolific writing wise as obviously as we were in the 80s and 90s, but it was fun. I thought it was a really good record. Unfortunately, there's only 7 songs on it because Huey couldn't sing anymore, so
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't continue with writing new stuff for it. So yeah, it was fun. We did it, most of it at our little studio in Santa Fe here in Marin. And,
Right.
Yeah, it was fun.
How many tracks? So of course 7 got finished, but how many were left to do before you had to put it on hold?
0.
Oh,
We finished 7 we had, and that was it.
well, at least there wasn't any that like you had started and then couldn't finish. So that's good, at least. Yeah. Now it's got to be tough, with Huey's hearing problems, because it's been 6 years now since it became public, and the more years that go by, it's probably tougher for him to kind of regain the ability to sing again. Dare I say, if this is it, are you guys happy with how everything has played out and just content with the band's legacy?
Well, we got lots of irons in the fire. Our play, the Heart of Rock and Roll, it just got a theater on Broadway, the James Earl Jones Theater, and that's going to start in April in New York City. So that's very exciting for us. That's that's going to be really neat. Johnny and I are going to be working on some we're going to re-release the first album. We're going to remix it and re-release the first album, and we're going to work on that a little bit. We have some live stuff that we've not released that we're going to put out. So we have irons in the fire. It's not done yet. As far as playing live, I don't believe that will happen. That was Huey I was talking to when we first got on. He had just called me.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to call him back here real soon. But I was talking to him a couple of days ago, and he says his hearing is getting worse.
Mm,
So I don't see a recovery, and I don't see us playing live again.
mm.
Unfortunately, it's really sad. I can't imagine what it's like for him. I feel horrible for him. He can't listen to music of any kind. He can't just go put on a record or put on his radio in his car and he can't listen to music. And I just can't imagine something like that so horrible happening to a musician, So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think the band is done live, but like I say, we have other things happening, and
Yeah.
we'll continue the legacy.
Awesome. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Like I yeah, like I would give up movies, I would give up video games, but I would not want to give up music. That's like the one thing I'd want to keep. So, just before we move into the next part of the show, you were talking about live recordings. It just made me remember, because on the We Are the World album, you guys got a song on that, and it was a live version of Trouble in Paradise from your first album. Is that a show that is potentially in the works to be released?
Not that one. That was the show we did at the Kabuki Theater in San Francisco, and it was it was a video that was released in Japan called All the Way Live, and we actually won a Grammy for that performance.
Okay.
But that was from that show. I don't know. I suppose we could go back and look at it, but it's already been released.
Okay. Yeah, nice. This episode of Guess That Record is brought to you by Marvel Marketing. Marvel Marketing is an award-winning digital marketing company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, working with clients in different industries from all over North America, including Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Marvel Marketing services include website design and development, website maintenance, search engine optimization, public relations services, and social media management, amongst others. To find out more, visit marvelmarketing.ca. This episode of Guess That Record is brought to you by GuitarWorks, one of Canada's top independent music stores for over 30 years. GuitarWorks carries a huge selection of musical instruments from the biggest brands in music, including Gibson, Fender, Martin, Yamaha, and Paul Reed Smith. Visit any of their 3 Calgary locations or shop online at guitarworks.ca and join the Guitar Perks program to earn money back with every purchase. GuitarWorks, your total guitar store. This episode of Guess That Record is also brought to you by Recordland, home to the largest selection of music in Canada. Buy, sell, and trade tapes, CDs, and vinyl. Located in Calgary's Inglewood neighborhood on 9th Avenue Southeast, visit them in person or follow them on Instagram at Recordland Calgary. Awesome. Well, we are now entering the guessing section of this podcast, for which the show gets its name. So I'll go over the rules for you, Bill, and any other new listeners we may have. In this bag is a record that I pulled from my my personal collection. I'll give you 3 clues about this album, and then we just play a game of 20 questions to determine its identity. And don't worry if you feel stuck, because I'll give you hints at any point. So, Bill Gibson, are you ready to guess that record?
Let's go.
All right. So here are your 3 clues. This album was released in the 1980s. It consists of songs that had been recorded for previous albums before it. And lastly, you've worked with people who worked on this album. Question 1.
So now I get to ask you questions, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Is it an American band?
It's not an American band. Question 2.
Is it a band?
It is a band. Question 3.
Is it a British band?
It is a British band. Question 4.
Is it My Aim Is True?
It's not, no. Question 5.
Is it have anything to do with Stiff Records?
No. Question 6.
Okay, and I've worked with somebody that was
You've
associated with this, right?
you've worked with two people that were associated on this album.
Are they musicians?
They're behind the desk. I'll say that.
Oh, okay.
Question 7.
Wow. So Mutt's got to be one of them.
No, actually.
Oh, oh goodness.
Question 8.
British band. The engineers or producers I've worked with before.
Mm-hmm. I can give you another hint if you'd like there.
Give me a hint. Yeah.
All right. You don't have to think really outside of the box with this because they are a massive band.
Def Leppard.
Not Def Leppard. Question 9.
Wow, you got me stumped.
I'll try and I'll think of another hint here. Let's see. This may help you get it along here. This band just released a new album.
Not the Stones.
It is the Stones.
Oh, it is the Stones. And who have I worked with that engineered or produced the Stones?
We've already talked about them in this interview.
We have?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Who the heck have I worked with who engineered or produced the Stones?
Well, if you're cool, I can just show you the record now since you got the Stones. So
yeah,
it was Tattoo You was the album, and so this album was mixed by Bob Clearmountain.
Oh,
and was mastered by Bob Ludwig, who did a bunch of your albums as well. Sure. So that was part of the reason why I picked the album when I was trying to, because of course I found out some of your favorite artists, and the Stones were on that list. And when I was looking through, which album, and then I saw it mixed by Bob Clearmountain and mastered by Bob Ludwig, I was like, that would be a good one. It is.
When you said they worked with the Stones behind the desk, I'm picturing them in the studio with the Stones, right?
Right.
Bob mixed that album in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Bob Ludwig mastered it in Los Angeles. So that threw me off.
All good.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It is interesting though with like how many albums, especially like in the 80s, where you look at the back of the album and it's mixed by Bob Clearmountain, mastered by Bob Ludwig. It's they definitely have a lot of credits under their name for sure.
Yeah, Bob's the man, and he mixed Weather for us as well. And he's just great. Matter of fact, we've just released Dolby Atmos mixes of Sports and 4. And Bob remixed those for us as well in Atmos.
Cool.
So,
yeah. Now, before we get into the discussion about Tattoo You, I'll provide some facts for anyone not familiar with it. Tattoo You is the 16th British and 18th American album by the Rolling Stones. It was released on August 24th, 1981, and the album largely consists of songs recorded during the 1970s. It contains one of the band's most well-known songs, Start Me Up, which hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. And to date, it's the last Rolling Stones album to hit number 1 on the charts, which ended a string of 8 consecutive number 1 albums for the band. Now, looking at, with your history and context with this album came out between the first Huey Lewis and the News album and Picture This. So do you remember your reaction when the record came out?
Yeah, I loved Start Me Up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was awesome. What are some of the other songs on that? Right? Does that? Oh, I'm thinking of Some Girls. I thought Some Girls was, well, my 2 favorite Stones album of all time are Let It Bleed and Some Girls. Those are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, Some Girls is a favorite of mine as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I love Beggar's Banquet. but there was something about Let It Bleed that just knocked me out.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and I don't. I, we weren't listening. I saw the Stones here in San Francisco. Might have been 1981. Oh no, it was the Steel Wheels. One was Steel Wheels out.
That was 89, I think.
89.
Yeah.
Oh wow, then yeah, that was much later. Much later. Yeah, I saw him several times at several different venues,
mhm.
from
uh,
large to small.
to answer your question here, some of the other songs on Tattoo You, besides Start Me Up, you've got Hang Fire,
Yeah.
Worried About You, Waiting on a Friend.
All right.
Yeah. So it's but the interesting thing is that, yeah, so when they were making this album, um Keith Richards and Mick Jagger's were sort of in a feud during that period. So it was hard to get everyone into the studio, but they needed a new album out. So they just kind of sent people to go find songs that they had started and not finished. So
Right.
a lot of the album was recorded in the 70s, but it doesn't, I feel like, even though, it's technically an 80s album, I feel like it fits for the time that it was released in. They did a good job of making everything sound fresh and current, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of a departure for him, I think. Aside from songs like "Start Me Up,"
Mhm.
that was pure Rolling Stones, pure Keith Richards. That one.
Yeah.
But like "Waiting on a Friend," when Wayne Shorter on that song,
What does he
sax
play?
player, he plays
Uh,
sax, he plays soprano sax on it, I believe.
yeah, there is a sax
Wayne Shorter,
solo.
who played with Weather Report, one of the
Mhm.
jazz monster. And when I saw that, I thought, what's Wayne Shorter doing on a Rolling Stones album?
Yeah. It's that is a funny song. I do really like Waiting on a Friend, but it's a funny song because of course, when you look at it in the context of what was going on when they were making that album and how Mick and Keith weren't very happy with each other, it's the lyrics are a little ironic when you look at it that way, but it's a good
That
song.
just that happens to every band. And
Mhm.
you're going to be doing projects and stuff, and a couple of the guys in the band aren't going to be getting along.
Yep.
Trust me.
Yeah,
And that
definitely.
that happened to us too. We went through those times as well. And there are plenty of arguments and not seeing eye to eye, but eventually you get through it.
Yeah. And the album has an interesting structure because it's like the first side of the album is all kind of like, guitar heavy rock and roll songs. And then the second side is like ballads and, sort of softer tracks. And I always find it interesting when bands do stuff like that. It may not be a full-on concept album, but it's got a thematic element by grouping the songs together like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
Uh, Now, I'm curious about this. Would I be correct in saying that a big reason you're a Stones fan is because of Charlie Watts?
No,
Oh.
no. Um, I'll probably catch hell for this, but I never fancied him as any great drummer. I mean,
Interesting.
he was adequate and perfect for the Stones. Perfect for the Stones.
Mhm.
So there's something in there that I suppose that makes him great, but he's no great shakes, in my opinion. You know, um, Nicest guy in the world. A good friend of mine was very close with Charlie. I never got a chance to meet him, unfortunately. I know we would have gotten along. Um, but yeah, I was more into Keith Richards than I was Charlie Watts.
That's really interesting because I mean I do feel like I see a lot of drummers like, oh, he was a huge influence on me and that sort of thing.
Uh,
And but
back then, guys that were influenced on me were guys like Mitch Mitchell, Jimi
mm,
Hendrix's drummer.
yeah.
He was a major influence on me. And there was a guy here in Marin County who played with a band called the Sons of Champlin, who coincidentally I'm playing with now,
Ah.
is um, Bill Bowen, who was a major influence. Probably because he lived down the hill from me, and I could go sitting outside his room and listen to him practice.
Right.
And he kind of took me under his wing in the high school marching band and taught me some stuff, But he was a major influence. But guys like Mitch Mitchell, who I thought played circles around guys like Charlie Watts.
So. Yeah, no, Mitch Mitchell is definitely I've always found him to be underrated, and it's probably because he was next to Jimi Hendrix,
Yeah.
But yeah, he did some crazy stuff for sure. It's but it is I do feel like there is kind of like, especially with the drummers of your generation who kind of got their start in like the late 70s, early 80s, and were sort of influenced by the guys of the 60s, because it's like it does sort of feel like there are camps, like the guys who were influenced by Charlie Watts and Ringo Starr, who maybe weren't as they were more about just holding the backbeat and not being flashy. And then you've got the guys who liked Keith Moon and John Bonham, who would do all the crazy stuff. So
yeah, both of whom were influences on me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Both Keith and John Bonham, and I was fortunate enough to see them both several times.
Nice.
And so they were an influence. The whole British invasion pretty much was an influence on me. Ringo was huge. Who else? Guys like Ginger Baker,
Mm-hmm.
Jim Capaldi from Traffic. Yeah, the whole British invasion was super influential on me.
Definitely, yeah. And just to finish off here, of course, you mentioned you didn't meet Charlie, but have you met anyone else from the Rolling Stones?
No,
no,
nobody else.
No, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
It is. I forgot to mention this, but the Stones are quite a timely band for us to talk about because, as I mentioned in the hints, they just released a brand new album, and it's cool. And also, this week the Beatles released a new song, so it's kind of it's cool to see these bands that have been around for a long time still at it and putting stuff out there.
Yeah, the 60 years for the Stones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Well, we have reached the end of another episode of Guess That Record. I want to thank Bill Gibson for taking the time to appear on the show today. Such an honor to speak with you. I've heard your drumming for years and years. Of course, got to see you live as well. And as someone who's working my way into the industry, it means a lot to get to, like, when I get to speak with people who have played on songs and albums that were just massive hits. So I'm very thankful for the time you took to be on the podcast today.
I appreciate it, Jackson. Thanks for having me. And I'm really disappointed I didn't guess that record. But for sure I was going to guess that record.
All good. It's not a competition. It's just it's a way for us to a different way for us to just have a discussion about an album. So
sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
And thanks to you, the listeners, for tuning in. The podcast is nothing without you guys. So the more you keep listening, the more we'll be able to put out great episodes. Make sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening and tell your friends to check us out. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you've been with us on the audio side of things, but want to see the faces behind these conversations, just search for Guess That Record on YouTube, and it'll be at the top of the results. You can also follow us on Instagram at Guess That Record. Remember to keep rocking, and we'll see you on the next episode of Guess That Record.